The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky, each one a distant sun in a universe that thrived on challenges. Far beyond the reaches of ordinary planets, the Interstellar Academy floated, a massive structure of gleaming metal and energy fields. It was a place where the best and the brightest from every corner of the galaxy gathered, where species with natural gifts and enhanced abilities came to prove themselves. And this year, the Academy had announced its ultimate trial, a challenge so difficult, so cunning, that only the most talented cadets could hope to pass it. Among the cadets lined up for the opening ceremony, each carried the weight of expectation. Aliens with eyes that could see in multiple spectrums, creatures whose reflexes were faster than thought, and beings with mental processors more powerful than the most advanced computers were all present. They whispered and nudged each other, sharing confident smiles. But one figure drew almost no attention, a lone human standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. Her name was Ilara Voss, and she was a human, not genetically enhanced, not born with extra limbs, not equipped with advanced neural implants. Just a human. And in the Academy's records, humans had never performed well in such high-level challenges. Some records even called them fragile, unpredictable, or incapable of handling complex simulations. Ilara, however, didn't seem concerned. She stood straight, her dark eyes calm and steady, her posture relaxed yet alert. She watched the others, noticing everything, how they moved, how they spoke, how they underestimated her. And when one cadet, a tall, blue-skinned alien with tentacles, leaned over and whispered, "You really think you can survive this?" she only smiled faintly. "I don't think," she said simply. "I know." The tentacled cadet blinked, confused. He had expected hesitation, nervousness, maybe even a laugh. Not that quiet confidence. The head of the Academy, a towering figure with crystalline skin that shimmered under the lights, stepped onto the stage. "Welcome, cadets, to the Centurion trial," the figure announced in a voice that seemed to echo in every mind at once. "This is the most demanding simulation in known space. Designed to challenge your intelligence, creativity, and resilience, it is said that only 1 in 10 cadets will finish the trial." A murmur ran through the crowd. Cadets from other species exchanged looks of satisfaction, certain it would be theirs to conquer. But human eyes were focused. Ilara didn't glance at her competitors. She glanced at the trial arena, a massive holographic dome that shimmered with shifting patterns, grids, and impossible landscapes. She didn't see walls, floors, or paths. She saw opportunity. The trial started with a loud, vibrating hum. Doors opened and cadets were ushered into the dome. The first stage was deceptively simple, a maze filled with moving platforms, traps, and puzzles. At first glance, it looked like a test of speed, and many cadets rushed forward. Tentacle-wielding cadets used their limbs to swing across gaps. Winged beings leaped gracefully. Creatures with multiple eyes calculated distances with precision. All of them moved fast, but they moved predictably. Ilara walked calmly. She didn't run. She didn't leap. Instead, she observed. Every platform had a pattern, every trap had a rhythm. She noticed the smallest movements, the slight shimmer of a platform that would sink in a few seconds, the quiet hum of a trap's activation sensor. Other cadets passed by her, some falling into pits or triggering alarms, but she moved carefully, timing her steps perfectly. By the time she reached the first checkpoint, the dome was in chaos. Alarms blared, lights flashed red, and instructors in observation booths scribbled notes in confusion. One of them muttered, "How is she still ahead?" Another, more experienced, leaned back and said, "Humans, they think differently. That's the problem." Ilara didn't hear any of it. She only noticed the next challenge appearing on the holographic display, a series of floating obstacles over a pool of shifting energy. Most cadets hesitated. They had the natural advantages, but the arena constantly adjusted, making their instincts less effective. The creatures who relied on speed slipped. Those who relied on strength overestimated distances, but humans like Alara adapted. She stepped forward, not with brute force, not with speed, but with observation. She noticed a tiny vibration in the energy below each obstacle. She counted, timed her movements, and with each step she stayed just ahead of the platform's shifting pulse. Cadets stared in disbelief as she moved fluidly, almost dancing through the obstacles, while those with natural advantages struggled. Somewhere, a mentor whispered into a communicator, she's improvising. The academy loved improvisation. But no one expected a human to master it faster than species with centuries of enhanced training. Next came a puzzle room, filled with strange symbols and alien logic gates. The cadets needed to unlock doors, create paths, and find patterns under strict time pressure. Many panicked, relying on brute logic or rushing solutions. Ilara, as always, stayed calm. She traced connections with her fingers, wrote symbols on the floor, and slowly saw the system's design. It was elegant in its own alien way, but not impossible. She realized the academy wasn't just testing intelligence, it was testing perception. Most species looked for the obvious solution. Humans looked for what worked. Hours passed. The dome changed constantly. Each stage became less about speed and more about adaptability. Cadets who once dominated started failing. Panic grew. Ilara moved through the challenges steadily, earning glances of disbelief from observers. Some tried to study her methods, but she changed her approach each time, staying unpredictable. At one point, she encountered a group of cadets blocking her path. They were strong, confident, and certain they could force her to fail. The largest of them, a four-armed warrior with golden eyes, stepped forward. "You're human," he said. "Step aside. This isn't a game for your kind." Ilara tilted her head slightly, a smile forming on her face. "Do you all want this smoke?" she asked, her tone calm, almost teasing. The cadets froze. They expected fear, not a challenge. And in that moment, something shifted. Their confidence wavered as she walked past them, outthinking their attempts to block her. Her calm, simple approach dismantled their complex strategies without a fight. By the time part one of the trial ended, it was clear to the academy that the human was no ordinary cadet. Others had power, speed, and enhancements, but Ilara had something different. She adapted, she observed, she improvised, and she didn't panic. As she reached the final checkpoint for the first part of the trial, she paused and looked back at the dome. She had no idea what the next stage would bring, but she knew one thing. This was exactly where she belonged. For the first time in the Academy's history, the cadets whispered about a human not as fragile, not as slow, but as dangerously clever. And Ilara, quiet and steady, smiled to herself. "Let's see what you've got," she murmured, ready for the trials to come. The stars outside the dome seemed to shine brighter as she walked forward. In a universe built to challenge and intimidate, humanity had just made its presence known. And the game was only beginning. The Academy's dome seemed calm from the outside, its glowing panels shimmering under the light of distant stars. But inside, chaos ruled. The first stage of the Centurion trial had ended, and already the instructors whispered in astonishment about a single cadet, the human, Ilara Voss. She had navigated challenges that others had failed, outsmarted obstacles designed to overwhelm, and moved through a maze that had crushed the confidence of even the most talented beings. Now, the next stage of the trial was revealed. A large section of the dome shifted and reformed itself, creating a new arena. The environment was like nothing the cadets had encountered before, a landscape of floating platforms, energy fields, shifting walls, and glowing puzzles that changed at random. Sensors indicated that raw speed or strength would do little here. Every ability would be tested, but in ways the cadets had not expected. Ilara stepped forward, her eyes scanning the area. She did not rush. She did not panic. Her mind worked methodically, analyzing patterns, estimating risks and preparing for the unexpected. In contrast, the other cadets surged forward as if rushing would solve the problem. Immediately, the arena started to test them. A series of obstacles glimmered into existence. Energy walls that pulsed unpredictably, moving platforms that rotated and floated in strange patterns, and floating puzzles that required precise timing to unlock pathways. Many cadets relied on what they knew. The winged beings leapt across gaps, creatures with enhanced strength tried to smash through barriers, and psychic species attempted to predict the moving platforms. Almost all of them failed. The energy walls blocked their paths, platforms collapsed, and puzzles reset endlessly. Panic spread through the non-human cadets. One of them, a six-limbed alien with bright orange skin, screamed as he fell from a collapsing platform. A mechanical species tried to calculate the platform's rotation, but misjudged the timing and was trapped in a loop. Alara, however, moved carefully. She noticed that each platform, no matter how unpredictable it appeared, had a subtle rhythm. She observed the way energy walls pulsed and the timing of puzzle resets. Step by step, she crossed the arena, not relying on brute force or speed but on patience, observation, and adaptation. As she moved, she noticed the other cadets trying to copy her. Some hesitated, while others attempted to mirror her movements exactly. But she did not move the same way twice. Her unpredictability made it impossible for them to follow her fully. The first puzzle appeared as a glowing cube hovering in midair. It rotated, displaying different symbols on each side. To unlock the next pathway, the cadets needed to align the symbols in the correct sequence. Most cadets approached it in a simple way, trying to match symbols mechanically. The cube reset every time they made a mistake. Alara did something different. She studied the cube, noticing subtle changes in the light as it rotated. She realized the cube was not random. It reacted to human logic patterns. The other cadets could not see this, but she did. Slowly, carefully, she aligned the symbols one at a time, watching how the cube responded. When the last symbol clicked into place, the cube glowed green and a pathway opened. "Impossible," muttered a nearby cadet. "Humans shouldn't be able to do this." Alara didn't answer. She simply continued. The next challenge was even harder, a room filled with holographic enemies that moved faster than any eye could follow. Weapons and tools were disabled. Strength, speed, and raw ability meant nothing. The other cadets panicked, attacking the illusions randomly, only to find themselves blocked or exhausted. Alara studied the holograms. They weren't real. They followed patterns based on attention, predicting how cadets would react. And humans, she knew, could notice patterns others ignored. She moved carefully, stepping in ways the illusions did not expect. She dodged, weaved, and used misdirection. Slowly, the room cleared. Every holographic enemy disappeared and the door opened. By this time, the instructors were taking notes feverishly. One of them whispered, "She isn't just surviving, she's learning the arena faster than any algorithm we've designed." Another, older and more experienced, shook their head. "Humans, they are unpredictable. That's what makes them dangerous." As Alara approached the next section, she realized the arena was testing something more than skill. It was testing adaptability under stress. The walls began to shift faster, the floor tiles rotated unpredictably, and new puzzles appeared with no instructions. Most cadets faltered, using strategies that no longer worked. Alara smiled. This was exactly what she had been preparing for. Humans thrived in uncertainty. When the rules changed, when systems broke, humans learned, adapted, and overcame. She moved carefully, analyzing each new challenge and improvising solutions on the spot. At one point, she faced a chasm that seemed impossible to cross. The platforms on either side moved at random speeds, too fast for anyone to jump, too unstable for any being to balance. Cadets tried and failed, falling repeatedly. Some screamed, others froze. Alara paused. She didn't rush. Instead, she looked at the environment differently. She noticed a weak energy flow beneath the platforms. Using a small hand device she carried, she amplified the energy just slightly, stabilizing the platforms enough to step across. She didn't break the rules. She found a creative way to work within them. "Do you all want this smoke?" she whispered to herself with a grin, recalling her words from the first stage. She moved forward, leaving struggling cadets behind. As she entered the next chamber, the arena displayed its most difficult challenge yet. A series of doors, each with a different puzzle or obstacle, but only one correct sequence would lead to the exit. Every wrong choice sent cadets back to the beginning. Most beings relied on memory, brute logic, or intuition. Humans relied on observation, reasoning, and sometimes pure instinct. Alara studied the doors. She noticed patterns in the symbols, in the way energy shifted around each door, and in subtle visual cues others overlooked. She used her understanding to select the correct sequence quickly. Each step was deliberate, each choice calculated. Behind her, cadets attempted to follow but failed. Their confidence faltered and fear crept in. Some argued, some panicked. Alara remained calm, her focus unbroken. Finally, she reached the exit for part 2. The instructors were stunned. Most cadets had failed, trapped in loops of impossible obstacles, while Alara had completed the stage using creativity, patience, and human adaptability. One of the instructors, a being with 6 eyes and metallic wings, turned to their colleague. "She's different," they said. "This is what happens when you design challenges for species who follow rules, but a human ignores rules and solves them instead." The other instructor nodded slowly. "We underestimated them again." As Alara stepped out of the arena, she felt no pride, no triumph. She was aware of the trials ahead, knowing they would become harder and more unpredictable. But for the first time, the other cadets looked at her with something approaching respect, and maybe a little fear. The next stage of the trial would not just test skill, speed, or strength. It would test creativity under pressure, endurance, and the ability to redefine the impossible. And Alara was ready. She paused briefly, looking back at the arena one last time. "Not bad," she muttered. "But I'm just getting started." Some cadets watched her with awe, some watched her with disbelief, and some, proud of their species' abilities, felt the first hint of worry. If humans could survive this stage, what could they do next? The Academy's observers, hidden in their booths above the arena, murmured amongst themselves. "The Centaurian trial has never seen a human complete stage 2, one said. "We need to reevaluate everything we thought we knew about their species." Alara, unaware of the whispers, focused on her next challenge. She had proven her ability to adapt, to improvise, and to overcome what others called impossible. But she knew the real test was still ahead. As the dome's lights dimmed, signaling the end of part 2, a subtle energy shift rippled through the arena. The simulation was learning, evolving, and preparing for the final stage. Most cadets had failed, but one human had not only survived, she had thrived. And somewhere deep inside, Alara smiled, ready to face whatever the Academy would throw at her next. Because humans, she knew, did not simply survive challenges. They changed the rules of the game. The dome's lights pulsed with a strange rhythm, casting shifting shadows across the massive arena. Alara Voss stood at the threshold of the final stage of the Centaurian trial. Behind her, the other cadets hesitated, some having already failed, others exhausted and frustrated. The Academy had designed this stage to be the ultimate test, a challenge that no species had ever fully completed. And now, that challenge awaited her. The arena was alive with change. Floors rose and fell unpredictably, walls shifted positions, and energy fields hummed with power that seemed to anticipate the cadets' movements. Holographic simulations of obstacles, puzzles, and threats danced across the space. The Academy had made one thing clear. This stage was meant to be unsolvable. Its purpose was to expose failure, to show the limits of even the strongest cadets. Alara, however, did not see limits. She saw a system that could be observed, studied, and adapted to. While the other cadets panicked or tried to brute force their way forward, she paused, taking in the patterns. She noticed that, even in what appeared to be chaos, there was order. Energy pulses, holographic shifts, and moving platforms all followed subtle rhythms that could be learned. The first obstacle was immediate. Platforms floated over a deep void, rotating and shifting in impossible angles. Several cadets attempted to leap forward, only to slip and fall into safe but humiliating reset zones. Strength and speed were useless here. Only timing, focus, and creativity would save anyone. Alara studied the platforms, noting the micro-vibrations and faint energy trails left by their movement. She timed her jumps carefully, using small, calculated adjustments in her weight to stay balanced. Step by step, she advanced, her body moving with the precision of a dancer, her mind constantly adjusting for the arena's subtle shifts. The second challenge appeared as a series of interconnected doors, each covered in symbols that glowed and shifted continuously. A simple mistake would lock a cadet in the chamber, forcing them to restart. Many cadets tried to brute force the doors, pressing symbols randomly, hoping for luck. Alara crouched, taking a deep breath, and studied the doors. She noticed a pattern. Symbols changed in response to observation, almost as if the doors were watching how cadets approached them. The system expected them to think like the species that designed it, but humans thought differently. Humans solved problems by looking for hidden opportunities, not by following instructions blindly. With careful observation, she touched the symbols in a sequence no one else had thought of. Lights flashed, and a hidden door opened, revealing the next area. By now, the other cadets were watching in disbelief. Many had tried to copy her approach, but she changed it constantly. Every time they thought they understood her, she adapted. The next chamber was designed to be psychological, a room of endless mirrors, reflections, and holographic duplicates of each cadet. It created confusion, disorientation, and fear. Most cadets froze, lost in the illusion of countless paths, unsure of what was real. Alara paused again. She realized the mirrors were a test not of strength but of clarity. The reflections were programmed to make cadets doubt themselves. She took a deep breath, focused on a single point in the room, and ignored the distractions. Slowly she moved forward, using subtle cues in the mirrors, tiny differences in reflection timing and position, to navigate through the maze. As she progressed, she heard faint noises behind her, others struggling, repeating mistakes, panicking, and failing. She didn't look back. Fear was a tool she refused to let control her. Instead, she focused on adaptation, observation, and problem-solving. Finally, she reached the most difficult part of the trial, the central chamber. It was a vast arena with shifting platforms, energy barriers, and a complex puzzle that combined every skill the cadets had used so far. The room was designed to force failure. The platforms would never align perfectly, the barriers would block nearly every path, and the puzzle had no solution in the way it was intended. But humans, Alara knew, had a unique ability. When something was designed to be impossible, humans did not see it as failure. They saw it as an opportunity to redefine the rules. Alara studied the puzzle, the platforms, and the barriers. Then she smiled. Instead of following the intended path, she looked for what the designers had not considered: the gaps in the system, the hidden energy flows, the overlooked connections. Using her device, her timing, and her wits, she created a new path, one the Academy had never anticipated. The other cadets, exhausted and frustrated, watched as she seemingly ignored the rules. She leapt, dodged, and manipulated the environment, moving through the chamber in ways that should have been impossible. Every step was deliberate, every move precise, every calculation instinctual. At last, she reached the center of the chamber. The final puzzle waited, a glowing orb of energy that pulsed with unpredictable light and motion. Cadets were supposed to deactivate it using brute force or complex calculations. Humans, Alara knew, did not need to follow the expected method. They could think differently, see patterns where others saw chaos. She observed the orb, noticing that its pulses followed a rhythm that synchronized with her own heartbeat. She adjusted her timing, stepped forward and touched it. Instead of forcing a solution, she adapted to the orb, moving with it rather than against it. The orb glowed brighter, then stabilized. The chamber shifted, platforms aligning, doors opening, and the energy barriers dissolving. Alara had completed the final stage, not by brute strength, not by speed, not by following instructions, but by changing the way the challenge worked. Silence filled the observation booths. Instructors stared at the monitors, stunned. They had designed this stage to be impossible to expose failure, and yet a human had completed it flawlessly. One instructor whispered, This shouldn't be possible." Another said, "Humans, they do not follow the rules, they create them." The other cadets, still trapped in the chamber or exhausted from failure, looked on in awe and disbelief. They had expected power, speed, and intelligence to dominate. They had not expected ingenuity, adaptability, and calm under pressure to win the day. Alara stepped out of the arena, her body tired but her mind sharp. She had faced the Academy's toughest challenge and emerged victorious. And in that moment, the meaning of human difficulty became clear. Humans were not designed to overpower, predict, or outmatch. They were designed to adapt, survive, and redefine the impossible. The Academy's leaders approached her. The crystalline head of the school spoke, voice echoing in her mind. "Alara Vos, you have completed the Centurion trial where no other human has succeeded. You have not merely survived. You have shown that humanity redefines the limits we impose. You have earned a place among the greatest cadets in the galaxy." Alara nodded politely, keeping her calm demeanor. She had proven herself not through arrogance, not through force, but through patience, observation, and clever thinking. She had faced impossible odds and thrived. As she walked down the corridors of the Academy, other cadets, some still recovering, some still shaken by their failures, watched her. They no longer saw a human as weak or fragile. They saw someone who could overcome what they considered unbeatable, someone whose mind worked differently, whose adaptability was unmatched. Alara knew the trial was not the end. Challenges would continue, obstacles would grow more complex, and the universe itself would remain unpredictable. But she had learned something important. When the rules stop helping, humans do not stop. They innovate, adapt, and push forward. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the Academy, instructors updated their notes. Humanity, they realized, was more than a species. It was a force to be reckoned with. Not because of strength, speed, or enhancement, but because of something more fundamental: resilience, creativity, and the ability to overcome the impossible. Alara stepped outside, looking up at the stars. The universe stretched endlessly, filled with challenges that others would call insurmountable. But she did not see them as impossible. She saw them as opportunities. "Let's see what's next," she whispered, a small smile on her lips. "I'm just getting started." And in that moment, every cadet watching understood the truth. Humans were not just participants in the Academy. Humans changed the game. The Centurion trial had been the ultimate test. And humanity had passed, not by following expectations, but by showing the galaxy a simple truth. When humans are challenged, they do not break. They rise. The stars seemed to shine a little brighter that night, as if the universe itself recognized the triumph of ingenuity over limits. And Alara Vos, the human who had asked if anyone wanted this smoke, had shown every being watching that humanity was a species capable of greatness beyond calculation. The trial was over. The victory was hers, and the galaxy would never forget the human who refused to lose. The toughest of the academy approached, she smirked. Do you really want this?